just checking. All right. You should see my slides now.
Yeah. So before
yes.
Why don't I start? If you stop sharing for a second.
Yes.
Okay. So first of all, let's get started. So welcome everybody to the Global Innovation Management Institute's think tank. We run this every week, and we get speakers from around the world to talk about one of three topics. What are the latest trends in our society that will change the future? And so those trends which are most important, let's be in front of them. The second one is that what are the leading best practices on innovation management? And what are the new things that people are doing around strategy of innovation, capacity of innovation, the discipline of innovation? And the third part of this think tank talks can be around what's going on in specific countries and geographies, whether it's in Japan or whether it's in Italy or whether in other parts of the world. Today, we have a speaker coming in from Italy and also has got lots of knowledge on innovation management. So we're intersecting two ideas together, which will then give us an insight of what's next, what else you can do to become a better person. With that, let me give the introduction to Ariela Haska, and she'll introduce our new speaker, our latest speaker. Thank you, Ariela.
Thank you, Kendra. So I'm really glad that today we have Valentina De Matteo. She's a researcher and a professor in the University of Bologna, teaching design thinking and storytelling and communication design. She comes with a background as an advisor and consultant in innovation and change management, basically. Her education, she's graduated from Bologna, Sapienza, and Lewis Business School. So she wears different hats, and we are really glad to hear more from her about a trend topic, which is circular organizations and how to design resilient corporate environments through knowledge innovation. And she has really plenty of experience in this regard, working with different companies. So thank you, Valentina, for accepting our invitation, and very glad to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Ariela, for the nice introduction. It's a real pleasure to be here because I've known GIMI by Fernando and by you, Ariela, and I think it's an amazing network to get in touch with experiences, get in touch with best practices. So really glad to be here and talking about a topic which passionates me from an advisory point of view and also from an academic point of view. And the main focus of my speech will be today related to circular organization, as Ariela was saying. So how can we design circular organization enabled by a continuous knowledge building, so continuous knowledge innovation inside? So that's my ambition today, to talk about my advisory research and also my academic path related to project research I'm making with the advanced design of University of Bologna related to the knowledge innovation. So how design can positively influence the regeneration, the continuous regeneration of knowledge within organizations. So just a few words about me. I'm currently an innovation designer, so I'm in charge of following innovation design and transformation project within corporates, and I'm a change management and innovation consultant. I was born in the south of Italy, but actually living in the north of Italy, in Bologna. So wherever you are and you are planning to come to Bologna, feel free to ask for some information. I have a non-linear academic background and professional background, and I will show it to you in a while. I love traveling, I love pets, I love moving from a project to another, and that's why I'm in charge of following various innovation projects. And I love to move also from intuitions to projects, and on the contrary, from projects to intuition. So a continuous circle that innovation can enable continuously. Just a few milestones in my career to share with you, and to share you the fact that my career is a non-linear career. I'm graduated in 2008 in political science and international relations, and from there my desire, my dream was to become an ambassador. Then something was wrong, and I decided to work with corporates in sales and marketing roles, mainly in B2B industries. And then some years later, I had an executive MBA here in University Lewis here in Italy, and my career perspective completely changed. And I started to approach innovation and strategy topics and working in the organization I worked with in project of innovation and change and strategy. Then I moved from B2B to B2C field to then the advisory. So I was working for BIP for 4.5 years. Then I decided to be a freelance as a consultant freelance in the field of innovation design and organizational transformation. Then in 2018, I had the chance to match the corporate advisorship work with an academic assignment I had, at first as adjunct professor, then a PhD candidate in the advanced design unit of University of Bologna. And now I'm actually a PhD candidate also there, in charge of following a research project related to the knowledge innovation. This is what I will tell you in a while. And also, I'm pleased to follow as an executive director, the executive master in business innovation design here in Bologna Business School. So just a few information of my background. What I'm going to share with you in the next 20-30 minutes is something I have learned and experienced with working with the organization and in the research project at the University of Bologna. So we will talk about knowledge as a pull and push tension for corporates, and we will talk about knowledge as a transition. So how to move from knowledge management to knowledge design, and what does it mean in circular organization? So in alternative way of seeing and structuring organization, enabling them for a continuous innovation. And then I will specifically talk about some results and insight we gathered in an international symposium we had with the Advanced Design Unit, which has been called Future Design for Knowledge Innovation. And by this symposium, we co-created a manifesto for the knowledge innovation that I would like to share with you. And you will see that this is a very open manifesto. So wherever you have some intuitions or some ideas to share, the situation of the manifesto is always evolutionary. So it changes after we have some ideas from the ecosystem. I would like to ask you a first question. The question is, when I talk about knowledge innovation, what jumps into your mind? I used to use Mentimeter, but considering that we are maybe a few, we can discuss about it directly. So if I say to you knowledge innovation, which is the first idea that jumps into your mind? Who wants to start and share some information?
I'll jump in. I would say the knowledge that exists in my network.
All right. So the network as a keyword for innovating, always innovating knowledge. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Any other ideas?
I see somebody writing in a specific topic like biotechnologic. So it's a topic, a technology topic, or a section, biotechnology, by nanotechnology, robotics, a specific area of knowledge.
Okay, so the focus of knowledge innovation, which is related to the technology development, according to Luis. Thanks, Luis. I hope the pronunciation of your name is right. Any new thing is saying David. Okay. Any other ideas that we can share before going on?
I think it's the ability to share that knowledge, the innovation knowledge with each other. Saying, do we have a library, or do we have a database or systems by which we can exchange information that helps us?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so you are pointing out that maybe knowledge innovation is more a process of sharing than an output, a specific output. Yes, and you are completely right on that. I completely agree on your point of view. Any other suggestions? I see another.
Or probably the knowledge around innovation, the framework of innovation, the language of innovation, they talk about the same innovation structure. So it's the knowledge about the innovation indeed, in the innovation process, innovation methodology, how to innovate, innovation systems within innovation.
All right. Thank you, Edwin. So also in your case, the focus is more about the process and less about the output, let's say the product or the service, if I correctly understood your point of view. All right. Any other things?
This is Julie. I would think, again, it's probably more of a process thing, and it's building on both Edwin and Hitendra's point. But it's how do you creatively organize all the innovation, the knowledge innovation you have, so that it's easy to find and build upon. I mean, oftentimes we have a lot of information, but we don't know how to get to it. We don't know how to build on.
Absolutely, Julie, absolutely. And in fact, the creativity and the power of mixing together all the knowledge and organize in the correct way the knowledge to transform the distributed information that we have available in solid knowledge is one of the key challenges in knowledge innovation. Thank you. Do you have any other suggestions when we talk about knowledge innovation? All right, I think that we can start by introducing this double tension behind the knowledge innovation, the push tension and the pull tension. And when the Advanced Design Unit asked me to be the research coordinator on this project related to the knowledge innovation, I realized that I was in charge of following and thinking about the role of knowledge innovation for the continuous transformation of organization, even before the pandemic brought a radical transformation on our life, even from a personal and from a professional point of view. And actually, together with the Advanced Design Unit, we decided to approach this topic by two levels. And we understood that there were two tensions behind the topic. The first was about the push tension, so the relationship of design for knowledge. And while working with organizations in different research projects, but also advisory projects, I understood that corporates were more and more frequently asking for support on how to design new processes, and that's the keyword processes I heard from you, new methods, new places of organizational knowledge distribution to cope with reskilling and upskilling needs. So trying to find a first definition and a design perspective on this question, we can say that design and also management needs to interact with multiple theories and disciplines, especially when we talk about organizational learning. I'm sure that if I ask you, what's the meaning of organizational learning? No one has a single definition, because organizational learning actually does not have one definition, one formal and standard definition, being a living and evolving phenomenon. But nevertheless, beyond all that differences in definition, we found that there are two recurring elements, two common elements among the majority of the definition. And the first definition was, the first common point, was information process. And the second common point is behavioral change. So the first, information process. The second, behavioral change. So as far as we understood by studying and seeing organizational learning, observing organizational learning in corporates, we could say that knowledge is kind of materialized by a series of information processes which are brought together and socialized to activate behavioral changes, which are for sure focused on continuous improvement. So information processes brought together and socialized to activate behavioral changes, focus on continuous improvement and innovation. So the first insight we capture from this first reflection is that organizational knowledge is not only about formal and explicit contents and processes, for example, in an organization, but it has a lot to do with cultural and behavioral aspects of an organization. So there's always the question, is organizational learning and knowledge innovation tech intensive or culture intensive? Actually, we understood that it is much more related to the cultural development of new habits, of new behaviors within an organization, more than having a technological focus. And this could probably be the first assumption of people working on the definition of post-industrial knowledge design. And the post-industrial knowledge design is what we define with an approach involving a lot of techniques drawn from diverse evidence-based scientific disciplines, aesthetic principles, and professional best practice. So there are the scientific disciplines, the aesthetic principles, and the professional best practice brought together in the way that many domains has to be kept together while talking about knowledge, innovation management, and knowledge innovation management. Just to mention some: information architecture, knowledge management, instructional design, enabling technology, database, communication sciences, ergonomics, neuroscience, just to mention some of the main disciplines that have to sit together at the table to talk and build organizational knowledge innovation within corporates. And if you think about that, design also is itself a process of knowledge acquisition and innovation, because it requires designers and professionals work continuously on two levels: working in and working out the organization. Working in the organization, so from the inside, but also working on the outside. And this means that designers and professionals working on organizational innovation cannot limit themselves to examining the output related to physical artifacts or services. But we have to extend our reflection to the so-called cognitive artifacts, which are essential for the learning of people and organization, and include, of course, the generation of new meaning and values instead of only new products and services. But if we assume this is true, is the current corporate education responsive and adaptive enough to cope with this organizational challenge? So continuously regenerating knowledge. And that was exactly the question who arose, the pull tension, the knowledge for design, the role of knowledge for design. And this pull tension was meant for us to rethink about corporate educational processes and methods to prepare future managers or future designers to have a significant role and impact towards the emerging challenges of reskilling and upskilling that companies are facing more and more in a huge way. Considering that also we as managers and as professionals working in the field of change management, we move into a book environment, which is made of actually 4 challenges. The first challenge is, of course, the performance challenge, what a professional, what a manager must do for innovating knowledge within organization. The second is a systemic challenge. So how to learn to address the entire system, and not just a single part, just a single portion of the problem of learning innovation. And then we have a third challenge, the contextual challenge, how to deal with complex system being affected by the local context. And that is a challenge that we face in many corporates and organizations we are working in. while talking about knowledge innovation. And then the global challenge, how to deal with complex social and technical systems at even larger scale. So you see that the challenge and the topic is absolutely huge, but for the time and for focus reason, we are going to focus our attention in next 20 minutes to the push tension. So the first I mentioned before. When someone asks me, but what do you mean by knowledge innovation? I use this metaphor that you can see here from the slide. Because knowledge innovation, in my opinion, is a multi-layer challenge. And I believe we are in the middle of an earthquake when we talk about knowledge innovation. And you see, an increasing attention to this topic is witnessed by the birth of some international movements and communities who are in charge of exploring the futures of knowledge innovation within corporates. For example, just to mention some, the future of design education, the Montreal Declaration, the new Bauhaus project issued by the European Union and having a global scale and very focusing on knowledge innovation issues. And all these movements makes us think we are in the middle of an earthquake. And if you are something like familiar with earthquakes, you can see that in earthquakes, sometimes there are two kinds of moves. The horizontal moves with rapid and sequence changes. And for me, the horizontal moves are tools and technologies, rapidly and unpredictably changing. And the vertical one is, in my opinion, associated with the move and the change of behaviors and culture. So bottom-up changes, profound changes. So we are in the middle of this knowledge earthquake. And as for natural earthquake, the knowledge earthquake has an epicenter, so the superficial layer, and a hypocenter, a deep layer. And when talking about organizational knowledge, of course, the epicenter, so the superficial layer that we can see can be identified in organizations and corporates. But the evolution we can see in them lays its ground in a more profound society challenge. So the real hypocenter is there, is the dynamic and social interaction, asking corporates to profoundly change, and rethink about knowledge innovation processes. And this is because innovation in knowledge is necessary to rethink and make knowledge and learning processes more inclusive, more sustainable, more future-proof. And another point of convergence between the natural earthquake and the knowledge earthquake is that, in my opinion, as for a natural earthquake, also the knowledge earthquake can be, of course, disruptive and affect the ground of knowledge at all layers, from depth to surface, so from values to artifacts. But at the same time, it can be able to release a great quantity of energy to create the next normal through progressive settling. So helping organization designing organizational knowledge is actually supporting them in dealing with the uncertainty by default, by responsive processes and strategies, enabling technologies, communities of learning, content, formats, all that have element helps organization to navigate the VUCA environment. Please stop me whenever something is not clear or you have questions or curiosity on that. Another point is related to what does it mean, knowledge, and knowledge design and knowledge management. First of all, there's a semantic clarification. With the term, for the research purpose, with the term knowledge, we also include the learning and the training dimension. And apart from the difference of definition that you can see from this slide, we might say that there are some common, again, elements crossing all the definition. And the common elements are engagement and responsibility. For example, you can see by the definition that all the definitions use active verbs. So to address the engagement and the self-responsibility in building knowledge innovation programs within the organization. Engagement and responsibility of who? Of people, of course, individuals within organizations, and groups of people working together for a common goal, which is exactly what happens in organizations. So if we assume this, we might say that we are overpassing the process. This is what I'm observing in organizations. And there's a sort of overpass of the process of knowledge acquisition only by individual learners. So we are leaving behind the so-called monological approach. So the learning is up to individual within an organization to give floor to participation and social interactions to produce collective knowledge. And this is the so-called dialogical approach. So from individual to collective knowledge. And this is a very important shift within organization we are observing while talking and experiencing new ways of organizing knowledge innovation. But I believe, I'm observing actually, that there could be a further evolution in the knowledge acquisition within companies. And the birth of the so-called knowledge communities inside and outside the organization and corporates can be the basis of a third approach that can be defined the triological approach. So from monological individual to dialogical communities to triological process. So in the triological approach, what I'm observing is that learning is considered as a process of knowledge creation and co-creation, which concentrated on mediated processes where common objects of learning are developed collaboratively. So we are shifting from knowledge transferring to knowledge socialization to knowledge co-creation. And this is the innovation step we are taking with organization while implementing new tools, new processes from related to the knowledge innovation. And co-creation and collaborative process crossing diversified disciplines and experiences are peculiar features of innovation in knowledge processes for company. And the co-creation and the collaboration approach is very useful when we explore phenomena in transition like organizational knowledges. And knowledge can be considered absolutely a transition. So knowledge is a transition. We are, as a society, as a corporate, in a transition, and design and management has a lot to do with continuous transitions and evolutions. I will stop for a while to ask if there are some feedbacks or curiosity to share.
So, Valentina, this is great. This is the conversation of 100 years also. So it's not that this is a new conversation by itself. The fact that knowledge has always been important, and how do we socialize knowledge? How do we get the knowledge to the right place? What tools do we use to get the knowledge to be shared? And the challenge we've always faced in general, and I think we can talk about this, is we are interested in knowledge when we need it, and we're interested in knowledge when we don't need it. And therefore, most of us don't invest in building the libraries, capturing the information and the knowledge that we should share and distribute. And at some point, we forget where it's stored. And like a library, a very important thing in the world, but most people don't go to it. So just think about that as a context, saying, how do we, in this day and age, with the digital and everything else, what are the new things that will make us more confident that it's at our fingertips and we'll use it? Because in my experience over the last 50 years, a lot of knowledge systems have been created to really close the gap of what's the problem, what are the ideas, what are the solutions, what's going on around the world, connecting people, connecting ideas. It's been an objective, but it's not been done very well. And I think Cristanto wants to say something, so I'll let Cristanto also say something, just to add to the context. Cristanto, do you want to go? Your hand is up, Cristanto, and your microphone is off.
Yes, Cristanto, and thank you very much for the comment. Some solutions we are gathering by the International Symposium, and I will share them with you in order to understand if, for example, these infrastructures of knowledge can be developed, leveraging the collaboration and the co-creation strategies that corporates are taking in place while talking and experiencing new ways of innovating knowledge. So thank you for the comment. Cristanto.
Yes, good evening. This is Cristanto from Indonesia. It's too heavy for me with the knowledge, but it's very exciting to learn from you. I'd like to look at your earlier slides on the knowledge acquisition, knowledge transfer, and the last one is exciting on the co-creation of knowledge. With regard to acquisition of knowledge, we know, right? Somebody is intellectual, so curious, and then looking here and there and acquirance. It's easy. The transfers is there are two parties. One is the one who owns the knowledge. The other one is a recipient of knowledge. Then the intellectual one will give the knowledge to others. But now is the era of co-creation of knowledge, which is it's not linear, it's not the easy relation. So I was wondering how can we actually influence this process so that it can be more effective? For example, we are used to have the pattern like the superior one will coordinate everything and then collect everything, lead brainstorming, blah, 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 right? And then at the end of the day, the big one will lead everything. But is that true? Is that the process of co-creation? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Cristanto. It's a very interesting point of view. I think, yes, corporates are trying to embrace this kind of approach while thinking and processing knowledge innovation within organizations. But most of them, I'd say from my observatory, from the world of corporates I can observe and work on, is very far from the co-creation step. So corporates, and this is my feeling, are now absolutely and totally aware of the fact that knowledge is no more an individual attribute of the person inside the organization. And they are trying to develop some project of learning innovation based on the teamwork instead of the individual. But the co-creation is something that is not so used in organization, and it's a pity because the bottom-up approach and the circular approach, we will talk in a while of circular organizations, is the best way to let the knowledge be continuously regenerated according to the market needs. So this is a pity, but this is an awareness path, an awareness journey that we have to do with corporates while leading project of knowledge innovation and knowledge design within organization. But I really liked your comment. Thanks, Cristanto. Thanks for being there in the conversation.
If may ask a little bit more, Valentina,
yes.
If we remember about the Joseph Stiglitz notion about information asymmetry, right? So by
yes.
nature, everybody in your knowledge domain will have difficulties to talk to others with a different set of knowledge which are not known to him or her, right? So misunderstanding or that you are right, wrong is very common. The one who actually has a very strong knowledge in particular field will say that we know everything, and if I don't understand somebody else, that they are an inferior kind of thing. So I was wondering if there is another book on the learning process. It's called The Unlearning, Learning and Relearning. Is that process necessary that we, as an expert on particular field, have to voluntarily unlearn ourselves to get other knowledge known to us so that we can actually compromise, collaborate, or whatever? Thank you.
Yes, Cristanto, it's very difficult for the human brain to unlearn something and embrace other knowledge, other people's knowledge. So I think from a human brain confirmation, this is very difficult. But knowing that the brain capacity is a limited capacity, we moving in a book environment, we are forced at some time, at a certain point, to unlearn something, to give space to new skills that are required, to be always updated with regard to innovation needs and organizational needs. And we will see it in a while, how the unlearning and relearning processes are key assets for a continuous innovation, an environment of continuous innovation within organizations. And I hope having replied to your comment. If not, feel free to ask me something more on that.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
That's great. Any other comments? All right, so I think we can move on a little bit with the conversation, and let's say, and let's start from the previous point. So co-creation and collaborative processes crossing diversified disciplines and experience. And these are two features which are essential when we talk about phenomena in transition, like knowledge, innovation, and learning innovation is in companies. And we can say that knowledge itself is a transition. But what do we mean by transition? There's a specific discipline which is called transition design, which I am studying and I'm going through in order to understand the real potential of transition design applied in the organizational innovation. But let's go step by step. What is a transition? Transition is the result of developments in different domains. So it is actually a set of connected changes which reinforce each other and take place in several different areas. For example, technology, but not only technology, economy, behavior, ecology, values and belief system, etc. So we can say that when we examine and when we work on transitions, we cannot neglect each of these aspects. And so there's a multiple causality and co-evolution caused by this independent development. And knowledge too can be considered a transition because it is affected by social, geopolitical, economical, technological change that are always characterized communities. But now the thing that is changing is the speed of this interconnected phenomenon, the exponential speed of this interconnected phenomenon. And when talking about transitions and transition management, everyday life is viewed as a potentially powerful and transformative space when transition managers and designers can explore new way in which basic organizational and human needs, of course, are satisfied. If we are assuming that we are facing as innovation managers within organizations a transition, is this the right shape to face transitions? What does this shape remind you?
Top down is hierarchical,
Mm-hmm. That's great.
It's rigid,
And,
it's difficult to change.
Sorry?
It's a rigid structure, it's triangle that is difficult to reshape it.
Absolutely, totally, absolutely. This is the hierarchical and the rigid structures of current organization with a centralized authority and top-down knowledge. The building of knowledge is absolutely top-down in this moment. But are there any alternatives when talking about knowledge innovation in terms of organizational shapes that we can choose? And my answer is yes. We can go through alternative ways and shapes of organization, enabling innovation in general and specifically learning innovation. And this is what I mean by circular organization. So the juxtaposition between the centralized authority and the distributed authority, and the outside and the inside out continuous tensions to make the system very reactive and proactive with regard to the ecosystem. What is my definition of circular organization? I have one, but it's not absolutely a scientific one. It's my personal one. So many more attributes can be seen and added there. But I want to have your opinion on circular organization. What do you think it's the meaning, the real meaning of circular organizations? Who wants to share?
To get people started, I'll share. This is where at the end of every project, you share your best practices and you learn lessons learned and you build a learning organization. So every activity has got a, what did we learn? And we share with each other so the organization continues to grow in the circles of learning.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you, thank you. Any other suggestions about circular organizations?
Allows people to collaborate in a dynamic way.
Dynamic, sorry?
Collaboration in a more dynamic, not just hierarchical, but also you can collaborate with anyone at any time.
All right, all right. So collaboration is your keyword while talking about circular organization. What else? Co-creative, David is writing on the chat. And these are all valid attributes. And I have formulated my personal definition of circular organization, but I'm sure that by the conversation, we can add some more on that. In my opinion, a circular organization has 5 fundamental features to be really ready and transformation proof. The circular organization at first, in my opinion, equips itself only with the minimum set of structures and rules strictly necessary to support a different kind of leadership that I call distributed leadership. So the distributed leadership does not require authority and hierarchical structure to express itself. So minimum structure and rules to apply distributed leadership. The other attribute of circular organization is a replicable and scalable approach based on the positive variations that the organization itself has generated by leading experiments. So we are not talking about the implementation of overall transformation, all-in transformation. But when it comes to having some experiences of knowledge innovation, what I've realized is that we talk about experiments, pilots, to verify, test, and implement all the good things and the bad things are there to improve at the next experiment. The other attribute, in my opinion, that the circular organization has is a multitude of sensors. when we are in the organization, there's not a single censor, like the head of department, like the boss, or like the manager. All the people involved in organization have to be considered like sensors. And this multitude of sensors are constantly listening to the ecosystem towards sustainable exchanges and positive impact through experiments, continuous innovation, constant reflection on what is the production, its production, how and why the organization produces it, and not only in terms of product and services, but also in terms of knowledge, output and outcome. So products and processes. Let me just talk about a little bit more about the results that we had thanks to the organization of this international symposium, Future Design of Knowledge Innovation. The objective was observing and mapping processes, methods, practices, and places related to the distribution of corporate knowledge and learning in some organization located all over the world. Let's say that the perimeter of examining this knowledge in transition was made of 4 main topics, which we considered strategic to talk about knowledge innovation in organizational context. The first stream of research was about process and strategies. So all the sets of approaches and emergent way of working that organizations all over the world have taken in place to distribute knowledge within all its layers. The second stream of research was about the building of communities. So design of networks and aggregation for the purpose of knowing or learning something based on the network society distributed knowledge model. The third stream of research was about formats and spaces. So design of learning spaces, learning models, and formats, again, to understand their influence on the content. And then we had the other stream, enabling technologies. So all the tools, all the innovative tools and technologies to empower knowledge communities by including them in the learning experience design. So this was the perimeter, and this is an evolving perimeter because we held the international symposium some months ago. The research started about 1 year ago, but it is an evolutionary journey. Again, it is always an open research, and we are in a living lab with this kind of topic. And the step, this symposium on knowledge innovation, we have organized it in the middle of Corona-Cene. Corona-Cene is, we already know as the period, the historical period we are facing with the COVID-19. And this crisis, of course, will last longer than a few months, and behavioral and social changes would last for longer periods. So we professionals understanding, talking, and doing innovation within our organizations must take in consideration that something has radically changed in terms of social distancing, in terms of travels, public events, and all these things are radically affecting the way that we are producers and consumers of knowledge as a direct manifestation of our corporate culture. So this was, in brief, the research methods we followed to organize and to gather the results of this research. The first was observation, so identify a significant number of cases. The second was mapping, so surveying, scheduling, and interpreting the results. Then we had a third stage of modeling, linking the past to the present the past experiences, of course, to the present situation and the future prospects. And then the fourth step was the sharing, so calling together a mixed pool of contributors in terms of academics, entrepreneurs, designers, corporates, and specialists within the knowledge industry supply chain to tell us about their experiences. And we had a sort of forerunning questions, which can be divided in 3 categories: guiding the research and guiding how we gathered experiences of knowledge innovation. Retrospective questions, so looking at the past to see the changes in present situation. And here we asked ourselves how corporate academies, for example, have adapted themselves to the changes in organizational knowledge. The forward perspective, we call them in this way, and the ambition was looking outside and beyond to identify plausible and possible futures. So what other disciplines can tell us about the present and the future of knowledge, and what is here to stay and what will completely disappear in the knowledge innovation futures. And then we have a third category, very important category of questions, the introspective questions. So looking ourselves from inside to understand how much are we aware as managers and as professionals talking about and experiencing projects of innovation in corporates and in organization in general. How much are we aware of the meaning of knowledge innovation and what role can we play in? So these are a list of results. The following slides are a list of results that we gathered through this symposium. We collected among 2,000 international cases, 200, sorry, international cases, and the model, the research network was, for our choice, very distributed. So the research network was divided into 3 categories. We had the ambassadors, the custodian from a scientific point of view of the symposium, the contributors, so people and organizations submitting relevant cases and letting the research be more robust in terms of quantity and quality of cases analyzed. So and then the observers, so the people and the organization interesting for the research scope and interested to get in touch with the future initiatives and evolution of the symposium and the international observer. So we can say that this model was sort of distributed research network, and we have summarized the model, which worked very much. This was the first time we experienced this kind of distributed research network. And we can summarize this in the less to more formula. So a selected and narrow pool of diversified and representative academics and professionals, deeply co-designing each phase from the beginning, and being through all the process committed in dissemination efforts to reach a wide and diversified audience. So we believe that this less to more approach for distributed events and project research like this are very functional for the purpose of the research. These are the 3 main areas we explored in the research. So the first was about the awareness. So collecting perceptions, on the different meanings of knowledge innovation for respondents, and the role that designers and managers can play in it. The second was about mapping, so collecting specific cases and cluster them by some tags into brackets chosen by respondents. And the third was about advancing, so collecting opinions on what can be next from 2 perspectives. The personal perspective, what I wish to keep on exploring the field of design-driven knowledge innovation. And the second was about a more general and professional one. Which challenges knowledge innovation will be more focused on? Let's move quickly on the awareness results. Here you can see that I have tried to condense all the results, but please, again, interrupt me if anything is not clear. In terms of awareness, based on the data we collect, you can see that knowledge innovation from respondents is more related to practices and processes than to spaces and enabling technologies. And this is a first relevant insight. So based on the data we collected, organizational knowledge is mainly considered by respondents as a culture-intensive issue more than a tech-intensive topic. So creating the right mindset for innovating knowledge from the inside, followed by distributed practices, seem to be the most relevant aspect. So the focus on culture more than technology makes us suppose we are shifting from a dimension of knowledge transfer, again, to a dimension of knowledge creation. And what does it mean, knowledge creation? It means that we need purpose and culture to address knowledge. And even further, the co-creation dimension. If we consider, for example, the focus on partnership in terms of internal partnership within an organization, cross-functional, beyond silos, beyond divisions, and external partnership with experts within the organizational ecosystem. What about the results we gathered on the mapping? In this part, we asked respondents to associate one or two identifying tags for each project of knowledge innovation shared. And this is a word cloud representing the overall results. There were 4 main features owned by the collective projects on knowledge innovation. The first is, of course, digital. And this attribute can be, for example, associated to tools and technologies, of course, used to innovate knowledge, but also to the attitude required to innovate this field in an inclusive and sustainable way. So the first attribute was digital. Another feature is tangible, hashtag materialization, product, etc. And this was quite surprisingly, in an era of digital transformation, saying that knowledge and projects on knowledge innovation are tangible can deeply refer to the material side of knowledge and learning, associated knowledge innovation both to the product, so to the output, and to the production of knowledge, so to the outcome, to the process of knowledge within an organization. The third attribute was social based. So the projects that were inside the research highlights the great roles designers and managers play in creating and co-creating knowledge. And communication is a crucial part of knowledge inclusiveness and has to be accurately designed to let people experience learning situations that could be different to live otherwise. And the fourth and very important feature of mapped project in knowledge innovation is multidisciplinary. So this shows that the core disciplines that were for decades vertically engaged and focused in the study of knowledge acquisition and transfer within communities and organizations can now have the chance to interact to other disciplines, for example, design, to be augmented by many other disciplines. So all this to say that while trying to explore all this kind of knowledge innovation project within global corporates, we also try to give a synthetic definition of organizational knowledge innovation. And based on the mapped case, we could say we found that definition that again, it's an evolutionary definition, but the state of art of the definition of knowledge organizational knowledge innovation is designing strategies, processes, communities, technologies by adopting a multidisciplinary and phygital, so physical and digital approach, and adapting knowledge and learning experience to the even-changing needs and habits of people and groups. So to let it be functional, inclusive, sustainable, and interactive. I stopped for a while to gather some feedbacks and quick questions. If you have it.
No, this is great, Valentina, and it's very complete and very broad and all that. So for me, it's it recognizes what a complex topic this is, and how wide and deep and how multidisciplinary and all that kind of things. Idea. So this is at one side it makes sense, but this is a little bit of it makes me feel a little overwhelmed also, saying how are we going to do this?
Absolutely. The feeling is absolutely a shared feeling, because the field is huge. Because if we talk about strategies, processes, communities, technologies, we talk about a lot of disciplines and practices to be brought together, so that we have to recognize that a single discipline or a single professional or a single department working on an organization cannot do it everything alone. So the importance of the ecosystemic approach in approaching knowledge innovation within organization is something that we have to keep in mind. Thanks for underlining it.
Vale, if I may ask a question, basically, in one of the slides that you were trying to come up with a definition about the circular organizations. So basically, randomly, we say hierarchical and flat organization. I know that in between, we have several different organizational structures, and there is a distinction, right, between a flat and a circular organization. I would like your opinion. What would you highlight? What is the difference between a flat and circular organization? I have my opinion as well, but I'd like your ideas here, because I think this is important to know.
Valentina, is this your last slide? And maybe we can just put the faces on the screen so we can see each other's faces as we talk. Is there another slide you have after this, or is this the last
yes,
slide?
the last one. The last one. I have another one.
All right.
Yes.
So why don't you maybe show the last slide, and then maybe you can answer Arila's question after that.
Yes, sure.
The last slide, and then
Absolutely.
you put the heads on the screens.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, I will take your question, Arila, and just to show you the knowledge innovation map we have created in terms of which are the perspectives of knowledge innovation, futures of knowledge related to organization. And we created this tool that we call the knowledge innovation map, where we have identified a wide range of evolutions in organizational knowledge innovation, which of course imply, as we were saying just a second ago, a deep reflection of overall learning experiences and processes. And we have grouped these experiences for clusters. So knowledge can be seen as a product, so tangible artifacts to make organizational knowledge more accessible and anticipatory by embedding enabling technologies. The second quadrant is knowledge as a service. So processes and strategies for matching offer and demand for knowledge in a certain context based on personal vocation and organizational needs put together and trying to find the perfect match. Then we have the other side of knowledge as a space. So places, platforms, physical and digital platforms, communities to advance methods, practices, and experiences in organizational knowledge innovation. And then we have knowledge as a time. So matching present and future dimensions to pre-act and pro-act knowledge trajectories based on organizational future challenges. And you can see, again, this is a very evolutionary map. Here you can find some recaps of the main principles, the main tools and methods that we are using, putting for each quadrant, each of them. But again, if you have any suggestions on how to implement, on how to let this tool more evolutionary and more applicable to the context of your organization, for example, I'm more than free to listen to your opinion. And I stop sharing.
So Valentina, thank you very much for this great presentation. We should get your, where are you so I can find you, so I can put your spotlight on you. Hang on a second here. I think your camera is off right now, Valentina.
I'm sorry.
All right, there you go. We see you now. Thank you. So Valentina,
All right.
great. Thank you for having us on the, you're sharing with us this thing about knowledge economy and what it means to us. Irila had asked a question, and I think it'd be good to know what is the difference between a flat organization and a circular organization in the context of knowledge.
I will be a little bit provocative, but I don't believe flat organizations really exist. Because, for example, when talking about knowledge innovation, I really believe that there are a great sponsorship from the management, from the top management, in giving the move and giving the start to these transformational and evolutionary path and processes of knowledge innovation. I think that in circular organization, it is true that the authority is distributed, but the leadership and the sponsorship is very precise and has a precise vision on how knowledge innovation and in general innovation management process have to be carried on according to a precise strategy, a precise vision, and also purpose. I'm a little bit skeptic about the expression of flat organization, as again, I don't believe they really exist in reality. But maybe someone can be you're wrong and can bring some experiences on the table related to that. And I'm curious to know your opinion on that.
Irila?
Well, I think that basically organizational structure have developed a lot, and I think circular organization is a developed version of the flat organization where researchers and professors were talking about. And I think the main difference for me, at least, is in terms of the knowledge sharing, which means basically the emphasizes in the flat organization is that you can share knowledge easily and freely within the organization across the whole basically layers, right, of the organization and every individual. While in the circular organization, now you can even get more knowledge from outside. So this is the emphasis, and you can adapt this knowledge inside. So you can play with sharing freely knowledge within the organization across individuals and layers, but also being able, agile and nimble to get information very quickly and adapt within the organization. And so this is how I see as a developed version, because now you have to watch out more around the corner and outside and basically what is going on rather than focusing inside. So this is, in my opinion, the main difference.
Yes, I totally agree.
Let me get Edwin to ask you a question. Let's do fast questions, answers. Fast question answers. We get lots of questions out and maybe we can answer. So Edwin, question, and Valentina.
Thank you, Hitendra. No, first, thank you, Valentina. It's very, very good and deep presentation. But what comes to my mind is that flat organizations, for me, in the knowledge, it doesn't exist. I agree with you. Probably we can do share experiences, etc., etc. But in the term of knowledge, if you're in an organization, even if we said it's flat, this is how we do things. Probably you share information and you get more information. But even the flat organization said, this is how we do things here. Please follow these instructions to do whatever you need to do, because we have the rules. My question here is, this is not going to be utopic. This is how we should work in an organization according to your presentation. But we are fighting here with hundreds of years of how the brain works for the people, because they used to learn as a kids. We used to learn as a kids in the university, etc., with a lecturer, right? This is how you build the things. This is how you should do the things. And when the people came to the work and to the company, they are waiting for the boss to tell them how to do the things. So it's not that we should do that as your presentation, but the brain, our brain is not working like that. We are teaching kids, youngsters, young people, and even adults in master's degrees, etc., in how to do the things. We was talking with Hitendra yesterday about that in another meeting. This is your business plan. Do the business plan if you want to do a business. We are not training the people in the young age to try to think in new ways to do the things, because the teacher is saying all the time, this is how works for me, and he's teaching how works for him, not trying to look the kid how it's going to work for you. So how to retrain the brain to go to this stage? That's the key question. In which stage? And Elon Musk is saying, for Elon Musk, the people should find a way to learn, because some of the learners are visual, some of the learners are blah, 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 different techniques of learning. So we need to go down there and train the kids how to be trained and how they want to be trained, how they train themselves, because we lost that in our educational journey. We are waiting for the people to tell us what we need to do. So, and it's historical, years of learning in the same way.
Thank you, Edwin.
Absolutely, Edwin. You're totally right. I do not have the right and precise answer to your question, but it sounds to me that this is the reason why hierarchical structure is always on stage, because people are always expecting others to tell what to do, to give a strategy, to give a direction. And in fact, one of the things that we found through the research was that the main and the more scarce skills in organization are, for example, the system thinking, the problem solving. We are very good at solving operational problems, but when it comes to trying to find autonomously and in a personalized way complex problems, we are in crisis, because we are not used, because our brain works like that from millions of years. So it's not really easy to change paradigms, to change patterns of what we are learning for decades, starting from the school and also in adult education. So this is the real challenge, I think. And one of the things that I experienced to move and to make a step forward on what you say is the trying to have some experiments with engagement and action-based learning. So learning related to a specific purpose, letting people use the knowledge they have in entrepreneurial idea or vocational project within organization, which is not necessarily linked to the specific role that they are playing in the organization, but it has something completely outside that they can develop. And then I think I realized that innovation in knowledge can be realized by this kind of approach. Of course, this is not the only answer, but this is an experiment we can do.
Yeah, thank you, Valentina.
Valentina, last question, and then we have to bring this thing to an end. The notion of network organizations, information flow, internet speed of exchanging, right people coming together, the right people with the right skills coming together to solve the right problems, identifying problems, and all that, has been in the world, in the industry for a long, long time. It's not a new thing. So if you look at scientists, that's how they work. If you look at architects, that's how they work. If you look at chefs, that's how they work. So we have pockets of very experienced people who have been doing this all the time. What we are doing now is trying to bring it out to the rest of the organization. There are accountants who don't know how to do this. There are people who do finance who don't do this. People who do sales who don't do this because they were not trained. And in the other disciplines of architecture and science and all that, you do project-based, experiment, learn, share, debrief, review, go to conferences, exchange ideas, and there's all the things which were already put in place. And I believe there's a tremendous amount of learning that we can do from there. Our discipline of innovation today has come out of R&D. R&D is where we learn how to do this properly about the future and ambiguity. It was there where we tried to figure out what problems to solve of the future, to create solutions for the future in this space. And these people, they've got it, the books and books on how to do R&D, the books and books on how to do architecture. And the thing here is, I would say, it would be really good for everybody in our audience to recognize that what Valentina is now doing is basically saying, hey guys, for those who we used to call the innovators, this is what they were doing already. And now you too, if you take knowledge, circular knowledge, and embrace it, it's perhaps now we can democratize what the scientists, the architects, and others have already done, and we are going to democratize it. So what Valentina is offering is knowledge will democratize this thing. So Valentina, last comments, and then we will end this meeting and let people, we'll go back to our GIMI Think Tank meetings.
No, thank you very much. The democratization is a topic that passionates me a lot, especially when we talk about organizational knowledge, innovation. That's why the attribute of inclusive, participatory, and adaptive systems for knowledge, for including everyone in the corporates, but also in the society dimension, is one of the key challenges that we have when experiencing real knowledge, innovation, and learning processes. So thank you very much for highlighting this kind of challenge that we have as professionals working in change management and innovation, because this is a great responsibility, but this is the great part of our work, I think.
That's great. Valentina, thank you. You're always welcome to come again to our weekly meetings at any time. We learn.
Thank you.
I think you're pushing the envelope in thinking, and these ideas that you have, I believe our colleagues will take it. Some of it they'll embrace, and maybe some of them will invite you to come and speak at their events somewhere in Hong Kong or in Malaysia, Indonesia, Brazil, the Middle East, Colombia, somewhere else. With that, thank you for being on our platform and sharing with us.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. It has been a great experience. Thank you so much for attending. And if you have some comments, please get in touch via LinkedIn or via email. I'm glad to keep the conversation open. Thank you.
Excellent. So that was Valentina De Matteo, expert in knowledge, innovation knowledge, circular innovation knowledge. Please reach out to her and invite her to your environment and share and collaborate. Increase your circular knowledge by connecting to her. All right.
Absolutely.